It's like a great lord in his castle owns everything we do. So we plow up his fields and tip our hats to the courtiers riding through. And we polish up his suits of armor, and we guard his hoards of gold, in the hope that he'll protect us, but he will not protect us. And down in the streets of Bedlam, it's left for a free-for-all fueled by doubt and paranoia and rivers of alcohol. And the streets are filled with the sound of sirens, but no ambulance in sight. While in the lighted windows of the turrets above, they count the taking for the night. The smell of blood and buzzing flies as around the corpse, the posse of newsmen rides to bring the fear and to bring it well. Same old, same old, same old. You know, there's no great lord in the castle, just the courtiers and their men. And we're still plowing up their fields and wishing we could be like them. And we build their fleets of armor, and we guard their hoards of gold, in the hope that they'll protect us, but they will not protect us. Burn the castle down. Why am I reading Burn the Castle by New Model Army? Why am I reading those lyrics? You know, it's been a while since I've done a reflections or a random rant video, and I think it's long overdue for one. So long overdue for one, I might not be able to contain everything in one video. So why am I wearing all this stuff? Why am I wearing that? This has become a symbol to me of what working in corporate America today means. And same with those lyrics that I just read. And this is a real problem to me, is that it really bothers me that I know out there are companies that are shaving time punches off of employees' time cards to save on labor cost, which is a federal crime. And I know that they are getting people in lower tiers to do upper tiered stuff that normally would have a different income bracket to save on labor cost. And that there are companies out there that are denying legitimate, absolutely legitimate workers' comp claims to save on money. And these things are crimes, and it's like a game of chicken, you know, when they do stuff like that, because they know that the people that they employ do not have the money or the means to afford a decent lawyer. And there's been a few video releases out of exposing the corruption of our system, not just corporations, but the justice system as well. And it's not something that's solely indicative of one race. It has to do with people living in poverty. You can see this in a Netflix documentary called Making a Murderer. As well as there's another Netflix documentary called Down the Stairwell, where they address this issue. Well, these issues on our justice system. And it really bothers me that there's corporations out there essentially breaking the law And they're not fucking dogs. Sorry about the dogs in the background. I can't do anything about that. But it really bothers me that these companies are doing things that are essentially illegal, and there's nobody there to hold them accountable. There's no one there to protect the people that are employed under these companies. And on top of that, it gets really irritating when you look at what social justice has done. They harness the power of social media to essentially hold these companies accountable, and it's been working. But I think they've been focusing on the wrong things. We have the example of Starbucks, where two men were loitering and they got kicked out for loitering. It just happened to be two black men. And originally the idea was not to arrest them, but they started talking back to the police. They were arrested, and that is factual. That is factual. The deputy released a press statement outlining this. They were refusing cooperation with police officers, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do by the book. So that is not an example of corrupt justice system. We never talk about the amount of other people, different ethnicities, different genders, that get kicked out of establishments for loitering. We just focus, we hyper-focus on this one situation, like that's the only situation that ever existed in the first place or ever. And that's just simply not the case. But nevertheless, social justice warriors take to their computers, they go to Twitter, they go to their social media accounts, and they launch an all-out assault on Starbucks, and to which the CEO and another shareholder come and apologize on behalf of the entire company for something that a single individual, a GM of that particular restaurant, that particular Starbucks, did, not something that the company does or practices as a whole. And I can tell you that it's common practice to kick people out for loitering or hostility. That's common practice at any public establishment that you go to. And in fact, in many states on the law books, you have the right to refuse service for any reason you deem necessary. And that's designed to protect the workers. We don't talk about that. No, we just look at the very narrow lens of, well, they happen to be two black males. And that's the only thing that we see. We don't see the rest of the picture. But the thing that's irritating about it is that most international, any internationally traded company, any multi-conglomerate corporation like that, tends to be and wants to be socially and politically neutral, because that's how you abstain business, is that you don't want to recluse business from any demographic of people, because the more people you can get to buy your product, the more successful your business will be. If you create a business solely designed to a targeted audience, we've seen businesses do this in the past, they tend to flop. And those that do succeed, it's like they go in knowing that they are going to have a cult following for their product. So they don't try to expand. So the idea is to try and create a business that it can be a consumable product by pretty much any walk of life, and that it expands your ability to make a profit. And that's just good business. But what isn't good business is fraud, extortion, embezzling, shaving time punches to save on labor costs, denying workers legitimate workers' comp claims. And I have to emphasize legitimate workers' comp claims because there are people that do go into a work facility with a condition that they already know exists, do a few things, work a few days, and they say, oh, well, this is not a pre-existing condition documented on a medical file, so therefore you are the causality of it. And they get free treatment. And so the companies do try to protect themselves against that. But you can't sit there and deny workers' comp claims that are obvious, and they do. And people in those positions do not make the money necessary to afford a good lawyer to get that rectified. They try and cheapskate people on insurance policies. Many companies do that. They try and make the work week separated, like make the end of the pay period in the middle of the week so that they can overwork you without having to pay you overtime. They find various ways and loopholes to try and get out of these things. They have you, maybe you're an employee and they have you working on schedules or something like that, which is a manager duty, but still pay you as a crew person, as a means to get out of paying the differential that the managers make. They do other shady and sketchy things to try and save on food cost. And these companies are not held accountable for it. And if social justice warriors would take a step back and stop attacking companies on what they perceive as microaggressions, which really, a microaggression is only really insulting if you let it get to you. If you don't let it get to you, you've taken away the power that supposed microaggression has upon the individual. If you say, well, that's not offensive to me, well, then it's no longer a microaggression. And there's still inequalities in the workplaces. In many workplaces, it states that women can have piercings, but men can't. Women can have long hair, but men can't. Black people can have dreadlocks, but white people can't. These are inequalities. These are double standards, where this particular person can do it because it's socially acceptable, but this other particular person cannot do it because it is not socially acceptable. This is not equal. That's not egalitarian. And it's really, truly troubling that when you look at the statistics, like the right loves to proclaim. Trump has been going on and on and on Twitter about how he's increased the amount of jobs available in the job market. Well, yes, the job market does have more jobs available. But when you really look at it, they're not livable income paying jobs. They're more retail, customer service, warehouse, etc. They are the types of jobs that 58% of Americans are in, which is in an income level of $35,000 a year and below. That makes up 58% of the American population, which means the lower class and the lower middle class make up a majority of the United States population. And that means that the middle class is the next largest class, but it's nowhere near as big as the lower class. The middle class is small in comparison to the lower class. And the upper class is even smaller. It makes up 0.01% of the American population. And we have no contingency plan on what to do about that. As housing prices increase, market values increase, cost of living increases, medical expenses increase, and the health insurance in this country, in the United States, has been completely butchered. It's disgusting. I heard recently a statistic, and take it with a grain of salt. I have not fact-checked it. But in the particular area that I am in, at least, the average deductible on an insurance plan is $6,000, which is insane when you make between $7.25 to $17 an hour. I can tell you that I know of a particular insurance plan that it's outlined like this. It's a high deductible HMO only, which means you can only go to the doctors and practitioners that they say you can go to. If you go to anyone else, they won't cover that. But unfortunately, with the high deductible HMO only, they won't cover anything anyway until you reach a $2,500 deductible. And the average income of the people under this health insurance policy make between $10 an hour to $17 an hour. And you have to factor in that the cost of living is roughly around a comfortable living, basically upper lower class to lower middle class is somewhere between $14 and $15 an hour. Maybe $17 an hour. So roughly about $35,000 a year puts you in the position of living a lower middle class lifestyle. But then it gets even trickier, because after you meet the $2,500 deductible, it turns into a 20-80% plan. So they won't even cover everything after you meet the $2,500 deductible. And the other nasty bit of this plan is that if you spend $300 or more, you are required to pay that off within 30 days with your credit card, your debit card, or a flex card, which a flex card is just a savings plan specifically designed for routine medical expenses. Which really only makes sense to get a flex plan if you have a family. So that doesn't help. So anybody who works with that kind of insurance plan, let's say that they have a heart attack and they end up in ICU, and you're looking at a bill anywhere between, let's say, $125,000 to $350,000. So you met the $2,500 deductible, and anything over $300 must be paid within 30 days. So you've accumulated that $2,500 deductible and then some, and then they only cover the 20-80%. So you end up having to pay a very large sum of money within 30 days. Most people in that income bracket cannot get a credit card with a spending balance of $120,000 to $350,000. It just can't be done. Most people in that income bracket can't even get that approved for a car loan. Certainly not a credit card. And certainly don't have that kind of money in the bank. So going back, well, before I go back to the new model Army lyrics, So the problem that irritates me by itself. Looking at corporate America, looking at the way that they treat their workers, and to me, I don't, the race or gender issue is irrelevant, because the real truth of the matter is that classism is the real issue. If you are not in a particular class, if you do not make that money, you are royally screwed, and there's no resources available to you to help you combat somebody who is absolutely taking advantage of you. I used to say to people that I am so desperate to live, to provide food, water, resources, a roof over my head, that I'm willing to break my body. That's how desperate for money I am. I'm willing to break my body. And, I'm not saying that that nobody should be doing the work that's being done. I'm not saying that. But it really, really makes me mad that these multi-conglomerate corporations, or big corporations in general, are getting away with this. And there's no justice. None. You can go to your local labor department, and I guarantee you will have to jump through so many hoops, it's unreasonable. And the amount of money that it would take to acquire the proper defense to be able to hold these people accountable would not be in your financial bracket. And the other side of it is, so the social justice warriors proclaim to be the new ideological philosophy of the left. And it's almost like they don't realize the power that they've harnessed. Because the power that they've harnessed has made it so that a very small faction of people have been able to get corporations to bow to their whim, which is incredible. We've rarely seen that before, unless you do a full-out strike or a full-out boycott. And they figured out a new way using social media. But instead of going on, and this is irritating to me as well, as a liberal, a leftist, which they would perceive me as not being one, but I am. And this is something that I was crusading for, and something that I was for before this whole political correctness, social justice stuff happened. Is, this equality between the classes, is that, justice should be blind and not only given to the super rich. That everybody should be able to be firmly represented, whether you're in poverty or not. And it's like they threw the poverty out the window and hyper-focused solely on minorities instead of the lower class as a whole, which is 58% of the United States. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this, who's probably a little bit more conservative than I am. Absolutely, even he agreed with that this is a problem. But what makes me mad about the social justice is that they could be using this power that they've harnessed to hold these companies accountable for the illegal actions that they're taking on their underpaid workers. So now going back to the New Model Army Burn the Castle Down lyrics. The way that I see it is that whether it's the government, the justice system, or a multi-conglomerate or big corporation, it's like there's a great lord in the castle, and we're plowing up their fields, we're guarding their gold, polishing up their armor, and the hope that they will protect us, essentially that they will take care of us. But they will not protect us, and they will not take care of us. So the thing that really bothers me is that I don't think people mind doing the work. But if somebody is willing to break their body, break their mind, and do physical labor that is, quite frankly, unhealthy, both mentally and physically, that in return, those employees are taken care of. That if we appoint elected officials into office, like defense attorneys, and they get these great salaries, and it's like, well, that's fine that you make way fucking more money than I do. And it's fine, you deserve it. You went to school for law for a long time. But I think the reasonable expectation after that is that you defend the innocent. So the idea is there's this great lord in the castle. We guard their gold when we could clearly take it. And we polish the armor even though we could clearly make it to fail. And we plow up their fields even though we could take the food for ourselves. And the hope that we receive equal compensation of protection and care. But that's not given to us. This is not an argument of beggars and choosers. This is an argument of saying, I'm doing what is being asked of me beyond reason. Honestly, beyond reason. People are making sacrifices in their life. And the idea that working for a particular company is an act of choice is an illusion. Because they could say, well, you don't have to work for that company. You could do something else. Well, yeah, you're right. I could not work for any of these corrupt companies and be homeless. That's not a very realistic alternative now, is it? And you could say, well, you could go back to school. When I went to college and I applied for Pell Grants and student loans, and I was completely independent and divorced from my father as being taken care of by him, they said I'm not eligible for any of it because they would look at my father's income until the day I turned 27. Now 35. And the truth of the matter is the loans and the grants, the grant is very, very minimal, best. The loans will not cover the expenditure needed for the cost of living. And so you're at that point, you would be asking to sacrifice yourself down to a level of a standard of living that, again, it's an illusion of choice. Yes, I could live in a roach motel surrounded by drug addicts with a high crime rate and try to go back to school and do my best and hope after I obtain the degree that there is a demand in the job market for said degree, which is not always the case, which is why you have 58% of Americans that have gone through college and obtained degrees that are working lower income jobs. So how realistic is choice? Well, the reality is that there are people in the upper echelons that do make decisions that affect people down below. And those are not choices that the people down below are making. Those are other people making choices that affect them. Whether you like that truth or not, it is the truth. I did not make the decision for the loan department and the grant department to look at my father's income till the day I turned 27. That was not my choice. That's somebody else's decision to do that. And I understand why they did it, but it greatly impacted my life in a negative way. And I had no choice over that. None. So I think it would be interesting to see that power that social justice warriors have found, have harnessed, instead of using it for things that are individualistically offensive and interpreted by subjection, like there's subjective interpretations of what offensiveness is. Instead of doing that, why are we using this ability to hold these companies accountable for the things that they're doing wrongfully to the people who work for them? And I know there's a great many of liberals out there that do believe in wealth redistribution. Well, this is part of it. Is saying people are bending over backwards because they're so desperate to make ends meet, to raise their family, to have food, to have water, to have electricity, controlled environment, to have health care. Proper health care. And there's very little resources out there to hold these companies accountable to what they're supposed to be doing legally. Shaving time punches, shaving minutes, hours off of a time punch to save on labor costs is a federal crime. You have to be paid for the work that you do. That is the law. And there are companies that do this. I'm not going to name any companies at this point, but I know they exist. I just think that that should be amongst leaked information. And there's tons of things you can see in the Glassdoor with job reviews. And I think that people should march to their social media services and attack these companies, not on microaggressions and things that don't actually exist where they release an apology video and give you a free whatever. But I think you should, when doing this, the reason why they freak out is because it hurts their PR. It hurts their advertising. And it hurts the constituent of people that will go into their business and buy their product, which ultimately hurts their bottom line, which is why they freak out about it. It's not so much the issue that you're pushing, but if we were to push this issue of that they are unfairly treating the people that work for them, treating them unfairly, I think you'd actually be accomplishing something that is rational, something that absolutely is an injustice that needs to be rectified. Because there is nobody on the side of those people being taken advantage of in that way, trying to right the wrongs of those who are using their power against the population. And I'm for free market capitalism, not crony capitalism, but I'm for free market capitalism. I like my stuff. I like the luxuries of living in a first world. I truly do. But when a company has the opportunity to make a decision that could destroy an entire society financially, I think that company has gotten to the point of being dangerous. I understand the point of trying to climb the ladder and gain as much money and revenue as you can and grow your company. But when it comes to a company being able to make a decision that ultimately will bankrupt and destroy economies and an entire society, I think that company has too much power. And I am anti-authoritarian, and I do not see companies as individuals. I see individuals running companies. But I do not think a company should have enough power to destroy lives. And that's my thoughts on it. There is no great lord in the castle. Well, we're still wishing we could be like them, and we keep plowing up the fields and polishing the armor, and the media's all over it. But we do this in the hopes that they will protect us, but they never do. And so, I mean, as you see, maybe social justice warriors don't think I'm on the left. They'll come in and say, you're conservative. And then the right will come in and say, you're a social justice warrior because I'm doing the bleeding heart thing. But that's the stance and position that the left has been traditionally. I'm not advocating for authoritarian control. I'm saying that these multi-conglomerate corporations have too much authority. And that's dangerous. And when people are bending over backwards to the extent that they are, I'm not saying, like, let's say that, you know, take any injury for workplace, an injury from repetitive motion or isolation or whatever have you, and saying that if somebody is willing to do this for your company to make it succeed for you as the company owner, I think that's supposed to be the trade-off, isn't it? That we are compensated for that work through protection, through a financial means to take care of that, or a health insurance package to take care of that, and a financial agreement to where you can live a life that's not in a cardboard box or at the very spit of society. And like I said, the cost of living just keeps going up, and I have to wonder, and I've been asking myself this question, What contingency plan is there when 58% of Americans work in that kind of income bracket? As housing keeps going up, the cost of living just keeps going up. What are we going to do? There's no industrial growth in this nation, in the United States. There's not new jobs opening up. There's not a new job market out there for people to pursue. It's the same old that's been there. And so what's the answer to that? When you go from 58% of the people in that income bracket to 68, 78, 80%, and middle class is just gone. And then we redefine the parameters of what middle class is to being in a lower income bracket entirely. And the quality of living goes down. You're not talking about a first world nation at that point. You're talking about a nation that's breaking. So how are we going to deal with food, shelter, water, healthcare, resources, and such like that before people get to a point of desperation? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell button, and click whatever options are on there. I don't even know anymore with that stupid bell button. I think we all know that rundown. And there's no work cited in this. This is just me ranting my specific opinion on this particular subject. And, yeah, so social justice warriors will see me on the right will see me as a social justice warrior, but I think honestly, attacking that issue will not just help people on the left or people in poverty, it will help people on both sides of the political spectrum. Because everyone has been a target or a victim of this in some means, shape, form, or another. So with that, out!